In his first public statement about the murder of Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi, Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman acknowledges responsibility but distances himself from the murder. The Crown Prince, also known by his initials MBS, brushed aside accusations he personally gave the order to kill the journalist.
Absolutely not. This was a heinous crime. But I take full responsibility as a leader in Saudi Arabia, especially since it was committed by individuals working for the Saudi government.
Turkish officials insist the killing was given by the highest authorities in Saudi Arabia. The CIA concluded in its assessment the order came from the Crown Prince. As international pressure on Saudi Arabia piled up, Riyadh put 11 suspects on trial and fired close aides to MBS. The trial is held in secret.
In speaking up again and again and again.
The UN Special Rapporteur Agnes Callamard found out in her inquiry that the murder was deliberate, premeditated and extrajudicial. Her report was dismissed by Saudi Arabia. The Crown Prince is also facing growing calls to free activists who have been detained for months. One such case is that of Lujain al-Hadloul, one of the most prominent female activists who fought for the right to drive. Her family says she was subjected to torture.
If this is correct, it is very heinous. Islam forbids torture. The Saudi laws forbid torture. Human conscience forbids torture. And I will personally follow up on this matter.
In the meantime, the Crown Prince faces more pressing issues. Drone attacks this month targeted critical oil installations and knocked out 5% of the world's oil supply. The US blames Iran, describing the attacks as an act of war. MBS is calling for a tougher stance but rules out military option against Iran.
If the world does not take a strong and firm action to deter Iran, we will see further escalations that will threaten world interests. Oil supplies will be disrupted and oil prices will jump to unimaginably high numbers that we haven't seen in our lifetimes.
Saudi Arabia also blames Iran for arming the Shia Houthi rebels in Yemen. More than 4 years since the start of the Saudi-led military campaign, thousands of civilians were killed. The UN says the humanitarian crisis in Yemen is the worst in the world.
First, if Iran stops its support of the Houthi militia, the political solution will be much easier. Today we open all initiatives for a political solution in Yemen. We hope this happens today rather than tomorrow.
But fighting has flared up in Yemen, dashing hopes for any peaceful way out. The Crown Prince, in his interview with CBS, didn't mention the GCC crisis at all. The blockade imposed by Saudi Arabia and its allies in Qatar has led to deeper divisions and raised concerns of further instability in a volatile Middle East. Saudi authorities have recently announced easing visa restrictions and dropping strict dress codes for foreign women to attract tourists and diversify an economy addicted to oil. Many, though, say these steps are an attempt by Riyadh to rebuild the image of the Crown Prince, whose reputation has been damaged by the murder of Jamal Khashoggi and the war in Yemen. Hashem, Ahelbarra, Al Jazeera, Washington, D.C.
Well, Turkey's President Recep Tayyip Erdogan's written an article for the Washington Post in which he says his country will continue to investigate the murder of Jamal Khashoggi. He says Khashoggi's killing was not only a tragedy, but also a blatant abuse of diplomatic immunity, noting that the murderers travelled on diplomatic passports and turned a diplomatic building into a crime scene and were assisted in the attempted cover-up by Saudi Arabia's top diplomat in Istanbul, which set a very dangerous precedent. He goes on, it's in our best interests and of humanity to ensure that such a crime is not committed anywhere again. Right, let's go live now to Sinem Koziolu, our correspondent in Turkey, in Istanbul, of course, the city where Jamal Khashoggi was actually murdered. And President Erdogan making no bones about expressing how strongly he feels about this particular incident as we approach the anniversary of it, calling it a serious threat to the international order, which challenges the conventions that the world has come to take for granted.
Exactly, Martin. President Erdogan underlines that this murder could have been a precedent in terms of diplomatic situation and or diplomatic positioning, which violated the Vienna Convention. Mainly about his opinion, I must say that there is a softening of his tone, because last year, after this incident, happened in Turkey, he insisted that those people who perpetrated the murder should be extradited to Turkey, and those people should be tried in Turkey as the murder took place on the Turkish soil. However, in this opinion piece he wrote, he mentions that national courts and international courts may deliver justice, and he underlined the friendship between Turkey and Saudi Arabia, stating that he has always distinguished King Salman and his loyal supporters, loyal subjects, and there's a difference between them and the people who murdered Jamal Khashoggi, and Erdogan names them as thugs. Besides his highlight about the abuse of diplomatic immunity, he has some other comments. He criticizes the court proceedings taking place in Saudi Arabia. He says that these lack transparency, these lack public access to trials, which leaves a question mark. But he says we are friends with Saudi Arabia, and this incident is not a bilateral issue, but an international one. That's why he believes right now, which is different compared to last year, that international courts and national courts can bring justice. But he says that even though we are friends, we will continue to say the truth, and we will be continuing asking the same questions. He says, where are the remains of Jamal Khashoggi's body? Who gave the order? As Mohammed bin Salman, the crown prince, says that he didn't give the order, and also he asked who is the local collaborator and who dispatched those 15 diplomatic passport members to Turkey. So he believes that Turkey will keep asking these questions, but it turns out that the messages the Turkish authorities delivering right now are not as political as before, but more about justice and international order.
And Sinem, do we have any indication then as to how the Turkish authorities are going to take their campaign forward? Which forums will they be using in order to try to find more of these answers to the questions that so far are still left hanging in the air?
Martin, so far the indictment that Istanbul prosecutor's office was working on was not ready. I mean, we were hearing that the indictment was ready. They had all the evidence, because we know that they have the samples that they have collected from 171 specific points inside the consulate. We are expecting an announcement by Istanbul prosecutor's office that the indictment is ready and has been submitted. And so far, the foreign minister and Turkish president have said that they have shared every evidence they had with the Saudi authorities. But it seems if they will wait for the Saudi National Court procedures for now, and they will also they are actually wishing that the international institutions are also the followers of this incident, because President Erdogan states in his opinion that the perpetrators should receive the necessary punishment through justice system. As long as they are not punished properly, or if they enjoy a full freedom back in Saudi Arabia or anywhere else in the world, the justice will not be established. And he says that we owe justice to Jamal Khashoggi and his family.
Sinem Kozioğlu, live in Istanbul. Thank you very much indeed.